everybody, it's Calxiyn here. If you guys enjoyed this video, remember that you guys should become patrons over on Patreon if you guys want to support the channel and all that stuff. So, if you guys don't know, today we are going to be covering some Kingdom Hearts news that was actually, posted or released or whatever, yesterday, so it seems. If you guys don't know, I was actually a news reporter for another Kingdom Hearts site. We're reading off of KH3's today. I was a news reporter for a different Kingdom Hearts site, and since that, I haven't been a reporter anymore, I feel like I haven't been keeping up with the news, and so I decided, since, we already do Kingdom Hearts videos on the channel, something that may be cool would be, to keep myself updated, to keep you guys updated. This is a joint, effort together, you know what I mean? If I know I have to post a video for you guys, obviously, I'll keep myself updated, on all the news, because I used to be so on top of this stuff, and now I'm not. But anyway, you guys can read sort of the full interviews on KH3. Obviously, I think KH Insider will also post this stuff. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to not read out the entire interview word for word, because obviously, you guys can come check it out, but I kind of wanted to give my thoughts on some of the news that's talked about. So, one of the things, for example, that's talked about in the interview is that, Kingdom Hearts 3's plot will not really be that grim, and then, there's, maybe it could, make the audience, laugh more than in the past, and it's gonna be sort of a wide-ranging story of, there's the dramatics, and there's, the comic side. It seems like it's gonna be a very well-balanced game, and I'm happy to hear that, because I don't know, because, if Nomura's I don't know if it'll be that grim, as a writer, sometimes you're this isn't that bad, and then, all your readers go home and they cry, right, after, or their, or your players or whatnot. So, I'm not saying that he's, trying to trick us or anything. I'm just saying, from his perspective, I wonder if he's oh no, guys, it's not that grim, and then we're gonna be all, curled up in a ball, just, crying our eyes out by the end. We probably will be regardless, but I think that it's super interesting, because, some of the best, Kingdom Hearts moments are, I guess, the comedic ones, you know what I mean? Obviously, there are a lot of sad and dramatic moments, but at the same time, there's a lot of, funny chemistry between Donald, Goofy, and Sora, and so I'm glad that it'll be well-balanced, and obviously, I think having sort of a, jokey sort of different relationships with the Disney characters also sort of, works out well. Obviously, in the Frozen world, we have Olaf, and Olaf was sort of the comic relief part of Frozen. Obviously, Anna also has sort of a quirky sense of humor, so I think that that's sort of interesting, that it is sort of going to be, wide-ranging, and Nomura even says, neither of the relationships between the characters, whether between the main ones or between the protagonists of the various worlds, nor the journey of Sora alongside Donald and Goofy will be particularly dark. So it seems like the worlds are going to be sort of lighthearted, sort of comedic when they need to be, and dramatic when they need to be. Obviously, the worlds that they have are very funny, you know what I mean? Hercules has somewhat of a tone problem, but it's also a very funny movie, right? You know what I mean? Tangled has a lot of comedic bits, Frozen, like we said, and so I feel like they're keeping really to, the Disney charm, you know what I mean? Disney movies know when to, crack a laugh out of you, and they know, when to be dramatic, and I think, sort of the best examples of that are the worlds that they have here, Tangled, Frozen. Tangled has some very dark, dramatic parts, but it's also sort of a very funny movie, and it has very interesting, chemistry between all the characters, so I'm happy to hear that. I am really happy to hear that, and I think that's sort of very interesting, the tone stuff, just for me. I don't know, I don't know why I'm interested in stuff like that, but it's gonna be nice to sort of, after the game's done, to sort of analyze, the story beats and stuff like that. At least for me. I don't know. I'm a fucking nerd, so it doesn't really matter. Anyway, Nomura also talks about the clothes. So he talks about how he uses his own clothes for inspiration for characters. I think that's also kind of cool, because it just shows, I don't know, the best sort of artists, the best sort of creators can find inspiration in anything. Even just, he talks about, one of his own jackets, sort of inspired the jacket that Sora wears in the Pirates, world. That's just cool, you know what I mean? To be able to look into the real world and, something as mundane as a jacket or a coat and be I could, remake this and, make it a pirate jacket, for Sora, you know what I mean? That's just so cool. I don't know. But yeah. They also, do say that, like, the, I'm just gonna read this out because it's kind of hard to explain. No, this time the clothes of the protagonist will have no effect on gameplay or combat phases, but the type of battle you can manage will depend exclusively on the use of keyblades. The form they will take is the very representation of this novelty and will have no direct effect on the character. So I'm pretty sure they're basically saying dry forms aren't necessarily coming back. Like, it seems that that's sort of what they're talking about. Like, the main use here is really about the keyblades. So basically, again, like they're saying, the clothes of the protagonist will have no effect on the gameplay. So I'm pretty sure that kind of means that the drive forms are not long for this world. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, they're mostly focusing on keyblade transformations, which is fine, and it's kind of interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was, a lot of people were hoping the drive forms would come back. Like, I know a couple of you guys in the Discord server really wanted them to come back, but, yeah, I don't think that's, you know, it doesn't seem like, from this bit, like, I'm not that I don't understand, but I'm not really, like, sure exactly, like, what he's saying, but it seems like basically that's what he's saying. You know what I mean? Like, he's basically saying before the drive forms, like, changed the clothes or whatever, but this time the clothes of the protagonist will have no effect on gameplay. That's sort of how I read that sentence, but anyway. There's something else that I want to talk about, sort of, the other half of the interview, if you want to call it that. So basically, what they've been talking about is, like, in this one, like, because KH3's seems to have split this into two parts. So the first part was, like, about the tone and the clothes and whatever. This part is talking about, it seems, the gummy ship a little bit, but also it's mostly focused on the translation, which I think is sort of interesting, and also how they make the world. And so something interesting that they talk about here is that, you know, it seems like everybody on the team proposes to him how the world should be played, and I'm like, that's pretty cool, because, like, I know it, like, even for us, like, a lot of Kingdom Hearts YouTubers, and I'm not a Kingdom Hearts YouTuber, but I've done these too, have done, like, world imagines, right, where we imagine how the world would be played out. So, like, it's pretty cool that he sort of, like, gives an opportunity to everybody on the team, like, how would you do that, you know what I mean? Like, for the development team. I just think that that's really cool, so I wanted to talk about that. You know what I mean? And so that's pretty much it, for that part. Again, I'm not reading everything word for word, but that's sort of the interesting part of that. And, like, you know, having, like, everybody sort of pitch their ideas and maybe taking, like, a bit of somebody else's, and putting it together. Like, that just sounds really, you know, really fun, and a good way to sort of build up the world, because then you get, you know, a bunch of different ideas, that just one person making it maybe wouldn't have thought of. So I don't know, I just think that that's cool. Like, that's a cool development thing, you know what I mean? In terms of the gummy ship, there's not really, like, a lot going on. He says that, like, in the first game, you know, it was more of a symbolic significance. In the second, it was sort of, he says it was an amusement park attraction. That's funny. But this time, it seems like, he says, like, the space has been expanded, like, how you can move the spaceship, you know, they repurpose the shooting sections, all of that stuff. I just think that's cool that he thinks that, like, because I never really thought of it that way, that, like, the gummy ship in the first game had, like, a strong symbolic thing, but kind of thinking about it, like, I feel like that, you know, any ship in something where where you're trapped or whatever, it's, like, supposed to represent, like, freedom or whatever, not just in this game, right? Obviously, the gummy ship sort of kind of represents, you know, Sora being able to be free from the island, if you want to call it that, and so, you know, stuff like that. But I feel like that even in other games, like, that's, like, such a big thing, is the vessel, or, you know, what have you, being this symbol of, like, you know, freedom and, like, all that sort of stuff. So that's kind of fun. But yeah, I don't know. That wasn't such a big part where I was like, ooh, the gummy ship, you know what I mean? I just thought, that it's nice that they updated it. The gummy ship parts were not my favorite. Kingdom Hearts 1's, I think I actually liked better, than Kingdom Hearts 2's, which is a little weird, because obviously Kingdom Hearts 2's is very, you know, like, action-packed, if you want to call it that. But I don't know, I like, the ones in Kingdom Hearts 1 better. Anyway, so here's what I really wanted to talk about. Like, this is, like, the main thing that got me to do this video today. And that is the translation bit. So basically what they're basically with what he's saying is that, you know, he puts a lot of work into making sure the translations are direct and as faithful as possible. Because, you know, especially for a series like Kingdom Hearts, he says, an incorrect or defective translation risks compromising the comprehension of the whole story. And so he seems to really care. And, you know, he says that, you know, he also understands the, you know, the dynamics that characterize the team's approach to the localization of the game, and all of that, or to the location of the game, I should say. But I think that's pretty much the same thing. I think that, you know, basically what he's trying to say here is, yes, he understands, like, he wants the translation to be direct as possible, but not necessarily everything, you know, translates. Like, things get, you know, complicated, and I think that's sort of interesting. You know what I mean? He also says he prefers leaving, dealing with this problem to other people, and I think that's kind of funny. I'm like, what a mood, Nomura. But yeah, I think that he's definitely right. Like, there have been times in the Kingdom Hearts series where, like, some questionable lines have been said that sounded way better in Japanese. You know what I mean? And so, like, you know, the what I think of is like, Shion, like, who else would I have ice cream with? When, you know, Roxas in Japanese says something like Shion, like, no, we all have to go get ice cream together again, which is a slight difference, but very different, right? One is sort of saying, like, Shion, no, you can't go, because we all have to do this thing, you know what I mean? Whereas the other one is just kind of like, anyway, I don't know what to say, but I think that, you understand what I mean? Like, I think that, it does get different. So I'm glad that they're trying to be as faithful and as direct as possible, because then sometimes you get lines like that where it's like, what? Which has, like, much more of a meaning in Japanese, you could say. But I think that it does make sense. Like, there's, you know, like, balancing, like, being, like, getting a direct translation, sort of, which, you know, sounds kind of strange, you know what I mean, or may not sound as well, to also letting sort of the localization team change things to sort of, you know, fit in. Because if you guys have ever tried to, like, directly translate something, like, even with Google Translate from Japanese to English, like, sometimes it can sound a little wonky. So I'm glad that Nomura sort of found, like, a balance here between, like, hey, like, try to be as direct and as faithful as possible to the material, but if y'all gotta change stuff, like, I don't want to deal with it. That's sort of what he's saying, though, right? I just think that's so funny. But anyway, that's basically all I wanted to talk about. I think really the translation stuff is most interesting to me, just because obviously, like, again, like, most of us anyway, like, I've played all the games in this series, I can think of some questionable lines, but I think that, you know, they've done a really good job in terms of translating things, like, in terms of keeping either faithful to the original Japanese, as far as I know. I can only, you know based on what other people tell me, because it's like, I can't speak Japanese, so, it's not really something, like, for me to do, you know what I mean? But from what I hear, it's pretty faithful to the original Japanese, and even, you know, when there are some, like, you know, whatever lines, I'm just glad that they're paying attention to it, and I can see why they are trying not to go for, like, other translations, because some games, you know, they'll do French, they'll do Italian, they'll do Spanish, whatever. I can see why they're not trying to go for that right now. Like, in the future, I could see there definitely being DLC or something, like, for, I don't want to say a patch, but extra content, you know what I mean, in the future, but, like, this is probably a very big undertaking in terms of translation, especially, you know, translating it from Japanese to English, and then sort of, like, it's almost one of those things where, like, if you keep translating, the original meaning gets lost, like a broken telephone type thing, and I can imagine it's a lot of work, you know what I mean, because it's a lot of work to get the English right. Like, we've seen times when maybe the English, it wasn't stellar, you know what I mean? Like, again, the ice cream line, but I really like that line. I'm just using it as an example. I don't want to drag the ice cream line. But I think that, like, you know, it must be, like, very hard for them to do it from Japanese to English, never mind Japanese to a bunch of other languages, so I do understand, but I feel like in the future, if there is demand for it, they will put out some sort of DLC, where you could download, like, a language patch or something. I don't know. I don't know how any of this works. Anyway, guys, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, remember that you guys should join our Discord server because we're having a debate over the drive forms and whether they should have stayed in there. So if you guys are interested in that, you know, come with us, and we will see you later. Bye. Hello everybody, it is Calxiyn here. If you guys enjoyed this video, remember that you guys should become $10 patrons over on Patreon, or any level of patrons, as $10 patrons get to request videos that we get to do. Our $5 patrons get early access to basically all of the content that we put out, among other rewards. And our $1 patrons get access to our Discord server. So if any of this interests you, you guys should check it out. Bye, guys.